Hi there, I'm Irk, and this is my channel, Get Irked. In this episode, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act ushering in a new era of clean energy, it's time to revisit the iShares Clean Energy Index, ICLN. In my previous videos, I've talked about how the transition from fossil fuels into green energy is basically guaranteed, and how investing in this space might be a good way to get good long-term returns. I'm going to include links to those previous videos at the end of this video so that you can catch up if you're not already familiar with it, as this video is going to be revisiting one of these investments and going over where the buying plan is now if you didn't currently hold shares in the ETF, as well as a look at what my investment has done since the last time I made a video about this investment. So now let's take a look at the iShares Clean Energy ETF on a chart and see what a buying plan might be if you didn't currently hold shares in the ETF. In this video, I'm going to do a couple of different techniques that are a little bit more unusual than what I've done before. First off, we're going to start by drawing a Fibonacci retracement from the all-time high of the ETF all the way to its low of 2022 to establish levels of resistance. These are levels where on the way up, ICLN may actually pull back because it's going to hit resistance that's there from previous buyers. Then I'm going to draw a Fibonacci retracement from the 2022 low to its recent high to find levels of support. Whereas ICLN sells off, it might find areas where we could add to a position as it breaks down. Zooming in on the chart, you can see that we have a lot of corresponding levels in the Fibonacci retracements that we've drawn. But one area of confluence I really like is this 23.6% retracement level at about $20.50. If you go back in the past, you can see that there was a lot of price action around this level, but I specifically like how these days here kept having lows that were really hard and pushed down here to about $20.75. So this would probably be my first buy. Since we're in a very volatile time in the market, I wouldn't start with a 50% allocation. I'd start with a 25% allocation and then save the remaining 75% to use as 10% allocation buys on the way down. Since we just bought at $20.75, I'm going to skip this 50% retracement, go down to the 61.8% retracement, and you can see in the past that we have a lot of support here as well, and I really like the pull down on this day at $19.19 as my next buy. After that, when we come down to the 78.6% retracement at $17.95, you can see that there was a lot of support over the past at this particular retracement level. However, again, I like the pullback on this day at $18.08, which would be my next buy. From here, you can see that ICLN's low was $16.35 in 2022, and that would probably be my next buy. Now, I'd probably buy a little bit higher than that and go with $16.50 or something like that, but that would be where I'd buy next. Now, in order to find additional levels where there might be support if ICLN sells off even more dramatically, as we could see a big sell-off in these volatile times, we're going to zoom out on the chart even more. And you can see that we have new retracement lines that are below where we were to find levels of potential support. If we go back in the past, you can see that there was a lot of price action on these retracement lines here at about $14.35. Now, if you're feeling particularly aggressive, you could do another buy here at $15.33, but since that's so close to our last buy at $16.50, personally, I would skip that one. After $14.35, we keep working our way down to the $11.71 mark here at the 161.8% retracement, and when you move back in the past, you can see that there was quite a bit of price action around that support line. However, given that that's a pretty big gap between our last buy, I'd probably go a little bit higher. And you can see we've got a lot of price action around these points here. So I'd probably use the open of this day at $12.10 as my next buy. From here, instead of using Fibonacci retracement, we're going to go back and just find levels of support. And you can see there was a lot of price action around these levels here. So I might do my next buy at around $10.50. After that, I would look for the bottom of the pandemic. And you can see these 2 days here had a lot of confluence around this point at about $8.09. And you can see that after these buys, we'd do our 25% buy here, and by the time we got down to $8.09, we'd be 95% in this allocation. What I would do would be to save that extra 5% in case we saw a really dramatic sell-off and this low broke, and I'd keep that cash on the sidelines. If it never got that low, then that 5% cash could just be applied to another allocation of a different stock in the future. When we last left off with ICLN, I had made a purchase on February 14th of 2022 at $17.68, which left my position with a per share cost of $21.55. And after this point, I let the ETF run a little bit to see what it would do in terms of price action. You can see that ICLN had a bit of a pop going through 2022, but when the Ukrainian invasion happened in March, you can see that also the ICLN ETF sold off with the rest of the market. I made my next buy in ICLN on May 9th at $17.42, which lowered my per share cost by 0.93% to $21.55. The ETF ended up bottoming at $16.35 a few days after that and then just rallied from there. When the market started to get frothy in August, I was taking profits in pretty much every single position I had, and the iClean ETF was no exception. I made 3 separate sells, one on August 5th at $22.71, a second one on August 17th at $23.13, and my most recent sale on August 25th at $23.06. The combination of the 3 sales lowered my per share cost 2.32% from $21.55 to where it is now at $21.05. From here, my next buy target is $16.20 above a past point of support, and my next sell target is $23.78. And although that's pretty close to where we are right now, I want to continue peeling off profits, as this is a particularly large position and I'd like to lower its per share cost. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.